Hey guys, Savage Joy here with Real Progressives. So tonight I am joined by a candidate who was actually recommended to me by multiple people. It is Rebecca Parson, and she actually is running for Congress in Washington State, which is, let's see, District 6. So you guys know I've had a lot of Washington State candidates I absolutely love, like Sarah Smith and Tamarine. So Washington puts out some good people for sure. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, Rebecca.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So you actually, I was reading your backstory, and you have a really interesting life story, essentially. Like you're traveling and what you do and your activism. Um, so let's see. I put down. Um, oh, okay. So first, I wanted to state that you do consider yourself a Democratic Socialist.
Mhm.
Um, are you, do you belong to the DSA?
Yeah, I do actually. I belong to my local chapter, Tacoma DSA, and I was in Atlanta for the convention this past weekend. I was a delegate for my chapter. So,
Awesome. I bet that was incredible.
yeah, it was really fun, and it was a really important time for the organization deciding what direction we were going to go in. So yeah, we made some important decisions. So it was really awesome to be there and meet people from all over the country. Yeah.
Absolutely. You are part of the LGBTQ community.
Mhm.
And as I was reading, you stated on your site that you would be the first woman slash LGBTQ open LGBTQ person to run in that district, right?
Yeah, it's pretty weird. Like, not the first woman or queer person, LGBT person to ever be in the seat, but ever to even run. Like, no woman's ever even run for the seat. I've looked back as, nobody. So, it's all me.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy. Now, Washington has one of the like the so-called jungle primaries, right?
Yeah.
So for you guys watching who don't know, it's essentially people with the top two people with the most votes. It could be two Republicans, two Democrats, a Green, and an Independent. It doesn't matter. The two people with the most votes. So that's good because that gives progressives more of a chance, essentially. So who are you running against? I know you state they take PAC money and not very progressive.
Yeah.
Who are you running against, and why were you inspired to take them on?
Yeah, so I'm running against Derek Kilmer, who's a Democrat, and he has been in the office since 2012. He's chair of the New Democrats, which, for those who aren't familiar, it's a centrist caucus in the House. And it's a very corporate-friendly, conservative Democrat caucus. I believe it's the largest caucus of Democrats in the House, and he was recently elected the chair of it. And yeah, Derek Kilmer is he takes a lot of corporate money. He's taken millions of dollars from defense, health insurance, big pharma companies, real estate. And in our district, we've got a lot of problems that are caused by those exact industries. So, for example, we take real estate, like a lot of places in the country, we have our housing costs are getting extremely unaffordable. We have one of the fastest rising rents in the country in Tacoma, and lots of people who are paying, 50% or more of their income on rent. And then we've got speculators coming in, developers, they'll come in, they'll buy a building, they'll pick everybody, rehab it, double the rent, and those people who are looking at nowhere to go. And that's one organization that I've been involved with, is with the Tacoma Tenant Organizing Committee, which formed out of that struggle. It was when a particular apartment building got bought, all the people there got evicted, they were all low income, many were disabled, some were on disability, some were in recovery from addiction or alcoholism. And it was like that, it was not even, it wasn't a very nice, it was a bit of like the landlord was not taking great care of it to start with, but it was all they could afford. And for many people, it was just that or homelessness. And so many did become homeless when they got evicted, and two have actually died since that eviction happened. But out of that, TTOC was able to get new tenant protections. So that was a big win. But when you bring it back to Kilmer, like it's not just in Tacoma. What's interesting about my district is it includes the entire Olympic Peninsula, which is a rural area that used to have a lot of logging, but the logging industry collapsed and it left behind. If people are familiar with like coaling and the coal mining, the collapse of that industry, it's kind of similar in the way to logging in the Olympic Peninsula. And you've also got people there, like there's a town called Aberdeen in my district that has 16,000 people, and 1,000 of them are homeless. So if you can imagine, like 1 out of 16 people are homeless. You have college students sleeping in the cars and stuff like that. And taking money from real estate is not gonna. That has you listening to real estate, not to the people who are victimized by real estate. And then he also takes money from big pharma and from the health insurance companies. One PAC in particular is a big pharma PAC, and its members are composed of the big pharma companies like Johnson & Johnson, companies like that. And some of the companies that are members of that PAC are currently being sued for manufacturing the opioid crisis. And the opioid crisis is really devastating the district right now. We have some of the highest OD rates in the state. And it was found that one of the counties in my district, they were prescribed something, I think it was over 50 pills per person in this county. And then that county also has one of the highest OD death rates in the state. No coincidence. And that same PAC is currently working to kill Medicare for all. There's just so many things like that. And, so for me, it was like, why, I was actually co-leader of Indivisible Tacoma for about a year and a half. And I really love the Indivisible model, like how they're kind of taking the tactics from the Tea Party. But I just found that it doesn't really work as well on Democrats because we're in this like safe blue area. It is very safe blue area. We have the Democrats, and you just kind of like, they don't really seem to listen. And it almost seems like the tactics work better on Republicans because we would just write and call and have meetings, and we want you to do this, we want you to support this policy, and we would just kind of get this smile and down like a nice form letter back, and nothing would change. And so it's really just that, and then the urgency of our problems. Like, we've got people really dying because we don't have housing, we don't have healthcare, and then the looming climate catastrophe if we don't act quickly. So those are some of the reasons I decided to run.
Right on. And it's interesting listening to you talk because after going over your platform, you have addressed each of these things on your platform. A lot of candidates say, well, something I don't like is, why doesn't your platform say you're combating it? So you actually address all those things on your platform. The first thing is no big money. So was that something you immediately decided?
Yeah, that's something I immediately knew when I ran. I was going to run with no lobbyist money, no corporate PAC money, because we already have somebody in who's a corporate Democrat. I don't think we need another one. And I'm not running to become just more of the same. And so I think it's very doable to win without taking that money and just taking money from the people and then being beholden to them and not corporations. And so, yeah, I've always believed in that and had that as part of my campaign.
Awesome. You do have federal rent control, which, bothers me when people don't have that because did you get a chance to read Elizabeth Warren's plan she came out with 2 weeks ago?
No, not yet.
It was abhorrent. It was actually insulting. She stated that she wants to take 10% off people's rent in the next 10 years. Now, it pretty much it goes up more than that. So I'm not sure what that's going to do. But there was no rent cap. There was it was just take 10% off within the next 10 years. So you are absolutely right about putting a cap on those. And so how do you, think that should be done per state, per zip code, per, median income? How would you decipher?
Yeah, so I think that there would need to be room in the national policy for it to fit locally in the way that makes the most sense. I think something like a hard cap where it's like you can only raise X amount per year or every 5 years, something like that, is not, it's a bit arbitrary, and I think instead it should be kind of sorry about the noise in the background. It should be matched to pace with inflation. And I also think it's important, for example, when we talk about $15 minimum wage, but a lot of people know that $15 still isn't enough to live on in a lot of places. Some it might be. And so my proposal, instead of a $15 minimum wage, is $15 plus, where the idea is that if you're working 40 hours a week at minimum wage, you can afford an apartment without it taking up more than 30% of your income. And so what I'm looking for is like policies that make sense like that holistically in somebody's life, so that they can afford housing, food, transportation, sending their kids to school, and buying school supplies, and just having a decent, dignified life, and creating a whole package of policies that provides for that.
Right on. You also stated kind of on that line, $15 an hour plus. So you were also kind of, on that line, you do want it to go by, area, lack of a better term. So how would that work out?
I think it would need to go by municipality, because even within states, there are areas where, for example, Seattle is much more expensive than maybe parts of my district, like Grace Harbor or the Olympic Peninsula. So I think it would need to go maybe by county or by municipality, so that somebody living there could work 40 hours a week, not have to work multiple jobs at 60, 70, 80 hours a week just to make ends meet. And so what really interests me is having these national policies to guarantee a minimum quality of life for people that's actually decent and dignified, and then have local variance, because I don't think that, okay, we're just going to make minimum wage X amount, it's going to be the same across the entire country. Like, different parts of the country are so different from each other, so that I think we can have like this broad policy that establishes a bare minimum, and then that they can't go below, and then allow for variance, above that, depending on what local conditions are like.
Yeah, right on. I live in Pennsylvania, and our minimum wage is $7.25, which is just, I mean, and like, I don't even have kids or anything, and I'm just like, how egregious.
Yeah.
Something you have on your platform that only one presidential candidate is pushing, Bernie, is a federal job guarantee, which is imperative. So can you explain why that's important to you and your district, and why you have that on your platform?
Yeah, I think it's really important because there's so many problems would begin to be solved, and even solved in themselves, if everyone who wanted a job and needed one just had one. And having it be part of the Green New Deal, where we transition our economy to a fossil fuel free economy. And that's going to take a lot of work, like research, infrastructure building, all kinds of like World War, as they say, like a World War II scale mobilization of industry, our economy, workers to make that happen. And I think it's the perfect opportunity to make sure that everybody who wants a job gets one as well. And it's vital to my district. So on the Olympic Peninsula, like I said, there used to be logging. The logging companies, they just extracted their resources, the lumber, and then just left. And just kind of left this vacuum in their place. And so there's joblessness, homelessness, addiction. I mean, all these symptoms where the real cause is despair. And despair because there's not much to live for. You can't work 40 hours a week, even if you've got a job that wouldn't be enough to afford a life. There's no way out of it. It's all these problems. We talk about them on the surface level, but what's really underlying it is just despair. And if you wanted to work 40 hours, if you worked 40 hours a week, you still wouldn't be able to have a good life. You wouldn't be able to afford. That's why you have people who are working and also homeless. And so, like, having a federal jobs guarantee would just be totally transformative for my district, in Tacoma as well. And because I think also one thing that is hidden in unemployment numbers is we say, oh, unemployment is low. It's like, well, yeah, but they're all crap jobs. Like if you're working 2 or 3 crap jobs, each one 30 hours a week, so none of them provide benefits, and that enables you to afford, a tiny apartment that's not enough space for you and your partner and your kids. Like that's not a decent life. And so I think that something that really frustrates me about a lot of politicians is they talk about the numbers and like the stock market has never been higher, the economy has never been better. Like Trump has made the economy so much better. I'm like, who has he made it better for? Rich people. Like the people working minimum wage is not better for them. It's not better for the people who are working multiple jobs and barely getting by. And that's what these numbers really disguise.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it's important to me to have a federal jobs guarantee, but also that they be good union jobs with a living wage, so that it's not just more exploitation.
Yeah, right on. Also, we have a lot of shit to do for the environment in 11 years. And besides a federal job guarantee, I'm not really sure how that's feasible. So on the topic of environment, what are the most important aspects of that you think we should kind of focus on first?
I think, firstly, researching and investing in technologies that will sequester carbon and then also reduce emissions is the number one thing we need to focus on. In terms of issues that are really specific to my district, we've got a lot of coastline in my district, both the Puget Sound and the Pacific Ocean. And we've got places that are actually having to relocate because of the rising levels of the ocean. So the Quinault Nation, Native American tribe, is on the Olympic Peninsula, and they have a coastline, and they have a village, Taholo, that's actually, they're having to relocate the entire village for over $1 million from where it is on the coast further upland. It's going to cost them $1 million. And it's really important land to them. It's part of their heritage and their traditions, and they're having to relocate and leave it behind because of the rising level of the ocean. And I think that's really egregious. Like, for people who have to leave behind their traditions, their land, their ties to it. Then in Aberdeen, I've been out canvassing there and talked to people living in apartments who said that anytime the river floods, which is happening more and more with climate change, it causes sewage to wash up in the streets, and then there'll be sewage around their apartments. So it smells like sewage, like when the river floods, which is just disgusting. And then in Tacoma a year or two ago, there were wildfires in British Columbia, the eastern part of Washington, and California. And they sent, we weren't affected by the wildfires here, but those wildfires sent smoke up into the air, and then they traveled and then came down on the Puget Sound area, including Tacoma. And so for a few weeks in that summer, it was hot, and we also literally had ashes in the sky. So it was a little bit like a post-apocalypse movie, like the disaster has struck, and now we have ashes falling from the sky. And so those are some of the ways that climate change is really impacting us and things we need to address. And we've also got the natural environment. So we've got orcas in the Puget Sound, and we have one species of orcas called the southern resident orca whales who are currently going extinct because they're starving to death. Because with the ocean acidification, there's greater toxins in the ocean that are getting into, they're in the food that the whales eat, and then it gets into their blubber, and it weakens it compromises their immune system, makes it easier for them to get sick. And then there's fewer and fewer salmon for them to eat. They eat this one particular type of salmon, and there's fewer and fewer of them, those salmon for the orcas to eat, and so they're actually dying off. So, there's lots of ways it affects my district, both urban, rural, and then wildlife, that with the Green New Deal and keeping the rising carbon dioxide emissions or greenhouse gas emissions to at least a low cap would really do a lot for the district.
Right on. Laura Fielding, my buddy, is in here. She wants you to speak about Whole Washington.
Yeah. Thank you, Laura. And hi, Laura. She's also a friend of mine. So Whole Washington is an organization in Washington State that is working on getting single payer passed statewide. Because, obviously we want it to happen nationally with Medicare for all, but, Congress doesn't get a whole lot done. So in the meantime, we're taking action here. And I'm recently joined the board of Whole Washington, and they, in the past, did an initiative to try to get single payer health care in the state. Almost were able to continue with that. It didn't get quite enough signatures, I think. Then this cycle, we're going to be trying again in 2020. this time with an initiative to the legislature. And if that passes, then we would have statewide single-payer healthcare. And, a lot of times states are the first to get started on policies, and then other states will follow suit, or the federal government will see how it works and then kind of take ideas from it and roll it out nationally. And so I think it's really exciting. Like, I think it was, Laura can probably correct me if I get this wrong, but I think it was Saskatchewan was the first province in Canada to do single payer before the entire country of Canada did it. And so it could basically be the Saskatchewan of the United States, which would be super exciting for us to be on the cutting edge. And then also there's just so many people who need it. Like, if we're definitely pushing for Medicare for all to happen, but in the meantime, we've got people in our state who need it now, so we're doing something about it.
So how frustrating is it? I mean, I know how it is for me, but how frustrating is it as a candidate to see, the 26 people running for president, and there's only one who's really talking about the real Medicare for all? Like, how do you, is it harder for you to explain to people, no, we don't want for-profit insurance involved, and, to try and explain the differences?
Yeah, and I think it is tricky because, like, most people just don't have time to pay attention to all the technical differences. So for, like, people like you and me, and like people who are watching this, watch it, it's like really frustrating for us because it's just corporate whitewashing of the policy. And I'm just gonna take something that's totally profit driven, that benefits companies, that doesn't get people where they need. I'm just gonna call it Medicare for all. And it is really frustrating because there's only one. And I think, AOC had tweeted something recently where she said, Medicare for all is single payer, period. That's the policy. I'm like, yes, it's single payer. It's not a public option. It's not like Jay Inslee's plan that he touts, that he got this public out. It's not. Like, it's just contracting out to private companies and allowing them to continue extracting profit off our sickness and denying us from getting real health. And that's not what Medicare for all is. So it is really frustrating. When I'm talking to voters who aren't very politically engaged, which I don't blame them. Like, if you're working multiple jobs and just trying to get by, or if you don't have time to pay attention to politics, and I'll just say something like, those other plans, they keep the profit motive in there, so it still benefits companies to deny you care and keep you sick. And Medicare for All is a plan where it just takes the profit element totally out of it. So what becomes important is your health and not the profit of the company. And when people hear that, it makes sense. You don't have to get into all the technicalities and stuff. It just, it's like, yeah, I don't want an insurance company getting between me and my doctor. I will just go to the doctor and get the care I need.
Absolutely. And comparable to College for All, there's only one candidate who wants to totally get rid of all student loans, which is on your plan as well. So has that been difficult as well to try and explain to people? No, some of them just want to take up to $20,000 after 3 years if you have a Pell Grant, which doesn't even get paid back anyway. And do you have to kind of try to explain to people what that entails?
Yeah, and I don't know, the way I think of it is like, do you want something that's just kind of like a Comcast contract with all these little pieces of fine print in it? And it's like, if you go to a trade school for 12 and a half credits per semester, you meet all these qualifications, and you go into this, do you want all that? It's like Comcast, and you sign up for 2 years, and then you realize you actually you have to stay with them till you're 99 years old or whatever. Like, it's just like, that's not what people want. And so I haven't had a lot of questions from people about like how the presidential plans are different, but when I talk to them, I always make it clear, it's like, whatever type of schooling that you want to get, like if you want to go into a career, you can only do it with a 4-year degree or a PhD or a trade school, whatever it is, making sure that's free so you can just build a life you want and not start it with debt, and not have it be limited. Like, only if you go to community college and then the first year's free and then the other ones are greatly reduced and you have access and all this stuff. Like, the one complaint I do hear is more like, well, I worked hard for college, so I don't see why they should get it for free, like that kind of thing. And then in that case, it's kind of like, well, college was a lot cheaper back then. It was cheaper even when I went to college 10 years ago. It's a really different situation. Like, you can't just get a job flipping burgers over the summer or deliver papers and have that pay for college anymore. Like, if you even had a job working 20 hours a week while going to college, that would probably pay for your textbooks and maybe so I think sometimes when people have those objections, they don't seem to realize like just how much things have changed. So I do a bit of that.
Yeah. I mean, I worked full time while I went to school, and I am just so I could pay for it, but I'm still like, bring it, cancel these loans. Like, I have a heart, you know what I mean? Like, it's all good. Like, I don't want them to suffer. It's okay. So you also have the teacher's starting salary as $60,000, which I believe Bernie proposed like last month sometime. So do you know what the average is in Washington State?
I'm not sure actually what the average is in Washington State, and we recently had some teacher strikes because we had a really unusual situation in Washington State with education funding, where the legislature was not funding schools. A case was brought against the state. The state Supreme Court ruled that the legislature had to fix it, and that there was a daily fine for every day the legislature didn't fix it, a massive fine that went into a fund for public education. But then finally, recently, they fixed it with the McCleary fix. But the way they came up with it was like not much of a fix. Certain districts ended up getting a lot of money, others didn't. They had to lay off teachers. So I'm not sure what it settled down to, like once the dust settled, what the average salary was. But I don't think anywhere in the country the average salary is enough. It's not what teachers deserve. Like, I was a substitute teacher for 2 years because I was thinking about becoming a teacher, and I just wanted to try it first before I went to grad school and got a degree and everything. And I enjoyed it, but I could see myself, it wasn't like a calling. And I think that I could see teachers who it was a calling for them. And it just, yeah, it gave me so much respect for what teachers do. They work so hard. And people give them crap for like, oh, you get the summers off, or you only work until 3 p.m. and stuff. Like, they work all the time. They do so much for their kids. You have kids who come in and there's free breakfast, free lunch. Like, school is a second home, and they come. Teachers provide that second home for their students, and a lot of them refer to their students as my kids because that's how teachers think of them and they care so much about them. And I remember I didn't enjoy middle and high school as much because that's when it got into being much more standardized and less creativity. But I loved elementary school, and I loved my first grade teacher. Like, she just made me love school so much, and like I look forward to it every day. I loved going in. I loved her. I loved my teacher, and I could see that when I was subbing in elementary school grades. Like, so many kids just like love their teachers so much, and I think it's really disrespectful that we don't pay them more. And not only that, we pay them like this almost starvation wages, and then just treat them with such suspicion and distrust. We just treat them like crap. Like, if we don't give you all these extremely rigid, strict guidelines, you're not going to be teaching our kids and teaching to the test, that kind of thing. Like, I remember once when I was subbing, I had like a binder that was a textbook binder with lesson plans, and it had the lesson plan I was supposed to follow for the day. And this was not a special one just for substitute teachers. It was the teacher's regular book of lesson plans that she just gave me, the one for that day. And it gave me a script of everything I had to read. So there was no room even for improvisation. It was just like, you get the script and you just read it through, and that's your lesson plan. That's what you do with kids. It's like, why don't you just get a robot and have the robot read it out? Like, that's not what makes a good teacher. What makes a good teacher is connection and adapting the material so that different learning styles can learn, and like connecting with the kids and building relationships. And I really think that we should pay our teachers what they deserve. And I think as well, like, attract the best of the best. Like, if people, why not have it be something where it's somebody spends their career, 20 years in chemistry, and then retiring from that and being a chemistry teacher, it becomes like something actually feasible that they would want to do because they enjoy the subject and there's enough of a salary for them to make that transition. I really think that we need to make teaching a more desirable profession, and then also pay teachers with their work.
Absolutely. You have abolished private prisons, which pretty much should be on everybody's list. Do you have any in your district?
Yeah, we do. Well, actually, just outside my district, but it is in Tacoma. We have an immigration prison, a detention facility, which is privately owned and run by Geo Group. And they've had a lot of complaints by people detained there of subpar conditions, mistreatment. I think there are many reasons that I want to abolish private prisons. One is just immoral. I think that it's immoral to profit off the detention and keeping of human beings. I think two, it just leads to even more abuses because, in some business models, the way you make money is by providing an amazing service and your customers love you and they keep coming back, so your business thrives. But that's not the way private prisons do it. Their business model is the kind where you have a service and you make it as scrappy as possible and you charge as much money for it as possible, and then all of this is profit. And because they have a contract with the government and no competition, like Geo Group owns that building, they have a contract with the government, the detainees, they have quotas, like there's no, in a true like free market, they would be out there, and if they were providing a subpar service and charging a lot of money for it, they would go out of business. But because this is the government providing welfare to the private industry to abuse people, that's not what happens. They just give more and more money, more and more profitable. And I think the fact that profit is involved makes it even more prone to abuse of the people who live there. Because, just in this immigration prison that we have in Tacoma, they have subpar food. They give them used underwear to wear that other people have used underwear from other people. Adults there have gotten chicken pox, which is very serious when adults get it. Instead of giving them medical treatment, they just put them in solitary confinement. I actually went to the prison. I've been there for protests before outside, but I went inside for the first time today. And I went and visited with a man who's detained there. We talked for about 40 minutes, and he is in his 70s. He's in a wheelchair. He has diabetes. He's had cancer in the past, and he thinks it's come back. And he has, I think, a heart condition as well, several different conditions. He takes 20 medications a day. And he's had to go to the hospital 6 times in the 4 months he's been there because the staff there they're not trained to deal with his medical conditions. And so he said, they're just not trained. So by the time they realize something's wrong, it's too late and he has to go to the hospital. So he's had to go to the hospital 6 times. And he said that if he can't be released on parole, he may request to just be sent to a federal prison because they have better medical facilities there. And this is a man in a wheelchair in his 70s who has lived his entire life in the United States. He was deported in California. He was deported a few years ago to Mexico, where it's not safe for him because a lot of one side of his family is involved with the cartels. He doesn't want to be involved with that. It's not safe for him. And then also being in a wheelchair, it's difficult for him, not as accessible. So he went to Canada and was there for a few years. But he was there alone. He was like, I had a good life in Canada, but I was alone. My family, my kids, my grandkids were all in California. So then he got cancer, and one day he just collapsed on the street in Vancouver, BC, because the medications he was taking for his different conditions clashed with each other, so he just collapsed. He went to the hospital for 10 days. When he got out, he was like, my choices are to either die here alone in Canada or die in California with my family. And my decision was made, so I went back. And he was able to stay there for a few years until he got picked up by ICE and then went into the detention facility. But I mean, here you have a man in his 70s in a wheelchair who just went back to the United States so that he could die with his family. Now ICE has him in a private prison. It's just, that's the kind of stuff that's just, we need to. Abolishing private prisons is one step that needs to be taken.
Wow, that is so heartbreaking. As a candidate, do you have people, with stories like that open up to you a lot?
Yeah, I do. Especially when you spend time, just let them talk. Like I went a week or two ago to Aberdeen. there's a homeless encampment there. They were on the river, but the city's been harassing them and trying to get them to move and basically just trying to criminalize their existence until they leave. And I went and talked to them, and I have a friend who has worked a lot advocating for the people in the camp there. She has a family member who lives in the camp, and so she's very trusted. And I asked her to go with me and be kind of like an introduction, and just ask questions and listen to people, and they do open up, and they really appreciate it because politicians don't usually go and talk to them. When they're talking about their immigration policy, it's like, well, have you talked to anybody who's actually in the immigration system? And it's like, no. Well, I don't think you're really qualified to have an immigration policy. So same thing for housing. Have you gone and talked to homeless people who don't have homes? Then you're not qualified. You need to go through that first.
Wow. So let's see what we've got in the comments. Charles said, fantastic take on the private detention center industry. They also pay detainees $1 a day, slaving wages. That's quite true. We saw that with the fires, especially in California. Thank you, Laura, for posting that. Let's see. Charles also would like to know your thoughts on the teacher strikes in West Virginia and such that actually were successful.
I think it's awesome. And when I was at the DSA convention, they had one of the Los Angeles teachers come and talk to us. And it was just so badass. Like, I really admire the teacher strikers. And I think that, if they're not in negotiations and the school district is not giving them what they need and deserve, then that's a viable tactic and they should use it.
Absolutely. So is there anything you would like to leave our viewers with that maybe we didn't discuss?
Yeah, one policy I'm excited about is bringing the pharmaceutical industry into public ownership, because I think that if the public owned the pharmaceutical industry, then the industry would not be as prone to doing things like manufacturing epidemics that kill us. And so I think there are different ways we could go about it. But for example, like just having the federal government buy up shares and stock until it's a majority stakeholder in all of the companies in the industry, thereby making the public the owner of the industry. I think that's what I'm going to push for to happen, because I think that when we have a for-profit, first of all, the pharmaceutical industry, they get funding from the federal government for their research. The government does its own research agenda as well, and then the industry benefits from it. So they're taking like our public investment in research and then profiting off it and charging us 10 times for things like insulin that they do in other countries. And you have people rationing insulin and dying because of it, and it's just ludicrous. It's completely absurd that people on the right like to talk about the free market and the invisible hand of the free market. I'm like, where did it become so invisible that it just disappeared? Because it's not. It's not a free market. It's not an open market when you have it rigged so that a company can decide, like, hey, we're going to charge, just as an example, like $10 for this in Canada, but we're going to charge $100 or $1,000 for it in the US just because we can. And that's not a free market. That's not people having choice. And so I think that if we had the industry owned by the public, then it would actually serve the public. So that's something I'm excited about.
Absolutely. And one thing we didn't touch on that I like to talk about with all of my candidates is seeing what we went through in 2016 with, voters being purged and, being given the wrong ballots, things like this. I know in Washington, you are mail-in votes only. Now, when you do that, do you get some kind of receipt when you mail them in?
Not physically, but you can go online and check that your vote's been counted.
Okay. And do you think that works well?
It has. I haven't had any problems with it. Really, the most problem problems come in with equal access to ballot boxes. Like there's an area, it's not in my district, it's just south of my district, that's low income. They didn't have a ballot box. And I had some friends of mine and then somebody who was running for office went and just pestered the auditor until she made a ballot box available. But because it is mail-in, but then also if you, for some people, like if you live in an apartment building, it can be easier instead of to just be able to go drop it off in the ballot box. So I haven't heard of any issues where it's like your vote not getting counted or anything like that. More so just having equal access to being able to mail it in or drop it off in the box. But Washington also just made it so that you don't have to pay for postage, which is great. So you just get it in the mail, you fill it out, and you send it back out, and you don't even have to pay for the stamp.
Wow, if only we could all do that. That's pretty awesome. And you guys are open primary?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought. Oh man, you guys are lucky. And as far as 2020, have you endorsed a candidate?
Not officially, but I'm 100% for Sanders. That's who I support.
Yay!
All the way.
I was gonna say your platform, you better be, because it's like Bernie, like identically.
He was one of my inspirations to run for office, because I think when he says "not me, us," the us is us, the people, but also like he can't just enact his entire agenda by executive order or by decree. Like he needs a Congress to do it. And so he needs progressive people in Congress to back him up and get these things passed.
Absolutely. Well, do you want to give your websites and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So my handle on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook is the same, Rebecca for WA, and for is spelled FOR. And then my website is rebeccaforwa.com. If you want to donate, there's a donate button, or you can go to rebeccaforwa.com/donate. And since I don't take any lobbyist or corporate PAC money, only money from regular people, anything you can donate really helps. I've had people donate $1, $27, like whatever you can donate really helps. And it was actually getting donations that allowed me to do some initial things in my campaign that I really needed. Like I paid for a graphic designer, got my lit printed. I also filmed my first campaign ad that'll be coming out soon. So just know that like when you donate whatever you can, it really helps, and it's also going towards real things that I really need, like stuff like that. So I appreciate it.
Awesome. You guys, thank you so much for watching. As usual, you guys are awesome. I have some great guests coming up, and don't forget on the 17th, which is a special Saturday show, at 9 p.m. Eastern, I will be holding a debate for all three of the Dem candidates going against Pelosi. So that should be interesting. I've invited her. I haven't heard back. I wonder why. That would be kind of epic. But yeah, so mark the date for that. And I have some other good guests coming up as well. But thank you so much, Rebecca, for joining us. Thank you, Laura. I know you were one of the people who recommended her. And before we go, I wanted to point out, you guys, that Rebecca just announced less than a month ago, and your website is on point. You got your answers on point. Like, no, seriously? I was like, no, wait. I was going through your Facebook page, and I was like, wait, July 7th? I'm announcing I'm running? I'm like, nah, you're right. That's impressive. I think you can do this.
Super busy, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Right on. Well, thank you so much, Rebecca, and best of luck with everything.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Take care, guys.